feel very strongly that we focus so much on weight in our society, and that often gets us stuck. So that's how I came to this, weight exclusive process, and it really does work. So this webinar is for educational purposes. I have to give the disclaimer first. Educational purposes only. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace medical care. You should speak with your personal healthcare provider about your specific situation. There's no doctor-patient relationship established by attending. So you're in the right place if you want to understand how lifestyle change can improve blood sugar control. Maybe you're hoping to avoid or reduce medications, if appropriate. And you want an approach that goes beyond weight loss. You want a care that supports your whole health. And this really, again, goes to the underlying cause, really, to beyond managing symptoms, really about protecting your health and doing it with joy.
I love that.
So what we're going to talk about today is what's happening in your body, what's the underlying cause, why weight-centered approaches often fall short, what actually is insulin resistance, and how lifestyle change can support metabolic health overall. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about my program. I have a 12-week program, and so I'll talk about that at the end, about how that can support you if you desire. So if you're hoping for a quick fix, which we talked about, or you're not open to a new perspective, because this is a little different than what the traditional recommendations are, although it's becoming more mainstream. You're not ready to take small, consistent steps towards change. So this really is for if you're ready to go from surviving to thriving with joy. So a little bit about me. So I'm a pediatrician. I'm board certified in pediatrics, pediatric critical care, and lifestyle medicine. I'm also certified in plant-based nutrition and culinary coaching. And I've been in practice for more than 25 years, so I have a lot of clinical experience as well. And the reason I switched from, doing more pediatric intensive care, I actually work in urgent care now, but I was finding in pediatric intensive care, we were seeing more and more children with lifestyle-related diseases, type 2 diabetes, obesity, hypertension, and these things were actually affecting their care and their ICU stays. And the thing is, you can't really treat a child with lifestyle disease. You have to treat the whole family. And so that's how I got started helping women, especially because we create a ripple effect, right? When we make a positive change for ourselves, our families are affected, our children are affected, or, on and on. So that's how I got, somebody else is coming in. I'll just wait for her to come in there. So welcome, Wendy. I don't know if she hears. So, so I switched to lifestyle medicine, and truthfully, I was amazed by the science behind it, and when I saw how many people were able to reverse disease. But I did find that sometimes it was a little rigid, and I was finding that even the people that I was helping were having difficulty, sticking to the all or nothing approach. Mm-hmm. I also feel like food is medicine, but it also should be enjoyable. It should bring pleasure. It is something that we do multiple times over the course of the day. We share with our families and friends, so it really should be, something that is built around joy as well. I also looked at I don't know if you're familiar with the blue zones, but the blue zones are the areas around the world where it's areas that they were studied. I mean, they really are many more zones than the zones that they talk about. But really, when you look at those areas where people live into their 8th and 9th decades of life without chronic disease, it's really because they have simple lives. They're focused on community and joy and purpose. And so trying to meld those ideas, the concepts of the blue zones, and then also the other tools and the science. The other thing is that often in medicine, women and people of color are left out of the discussion. I've so many times people have come to me and said, oh, well, I was told not to have, my traditional foods, whether it's, plantains or rice or something. And most of these foods are actually the least processed forms of foods, and they can absolutely be part of a healthy diet. So recognizing that that all of this needs to meld together in order to create lasting change. Diverse body sizes are judged instead of being respected. And lasting change really happens when you can embrace all of this together, when you embrace the science, the joy, culture, inclusivity. So food is medicine. I think joy is essential. It's not extra. And coaching is what helps make change sustainable. So it's worked for me and many of my patients, and I think it can work for anybody, everybody. So you might be here because you've heard, weight-centered, diet-focused approach and it hasn't worked or it feels, uncomfortable or restrictive. Maybe you've been newly diagnosed with a metabolic condition, or you've been hearing the same advice again without lasting results. And often, the weight-centered approach leads to frustration, more medications, and sometimes little improvement in metabolic health. Actually, sometimes worsening metabolic health over time. So today we're going to talk about what's really happening and how we can change it. So first talking with why just lose weight isn't really fixing diabetes. So weight loss definitely can improve labs initially, but how weight is lost, I think, matters much more than the number on the scale. Weight loss through dieting, as opposed to lifestyle change, is often regained. And when you go through this cycle of weight loss and regain, it worsens metabolic health over time. It results in worsening, increasing visceral fat, which leads to this worsening metabolic syndrome. So lifestyle change, not weight loss alone, drives lasting metabolic improvement. So again, this is kind of a repeat, but weight loss is how weight is lost matters more than the number on the scale. And then, oh, I have double. Okay. So weight is a visible marker. It's not the mechanism. Metabolic disease develops in the liver, muscle, fat, so multiple organs. And you can lose weight and still remain insulin resistant. And I've had this happen. Many people have come to me with this. So they've done all the things and they're still, their bodies are still resistant to insulin. And the converse is true as well. You can improve metabolic health without major weight loss. So sometimes the metabolic numbers improve first. I mean, sometimes you don't lose weight, but sometimes you do. Usually as you, support this lifestyle change, weight loss comes. But the metabolic health can improve without focusing on weight loss. So some signs of insulin resistance that you may or may not experience. So fatigue after meals, rising blood sugar, cravings and hunger dysregulation, weight gain, especially in this centrally, or unexplained weight gain. So I figure we start with first, what does insulin do? So insulin affects almost every organ in the body. The primary thing that we think about insulin is how it moves glucose into the cell. So it provides energy for the body. Most of our organs in the body thrive on glucose. In order for them to be able to use the glucose, every organ except the brain actually needs insulin to get the glucose into the cell. So it helps maintain our blood sugar in the regular range, the normal range. It signals throughout the body. It also helps with fat metabolism, fat storage. It helps with protein synthesis. It regulates fat burning. But ultimately, the signaling can be disrupted with visceral fat. So fat gets inside of the cell and affects how insulin works. So when insulin is not able to bring the glucose into the cell, your body sends another signal and the insulin levels keep rising to try to compensate. So that's another big thing, is that our body is always trying to create balance. And the goal is to help support the body in maintaining balance. So what happens when we develop insulin resistance? The fat gets inside of the muscle cells and the liver cells, and insulin doesn't work properly. And so again, the pancreas produces more insulin to compensate. Higher insulin results in more fat storage, so more visceral fat, which again interferes more with the insulin signaling. So we get this metabolic syndrome where we gain weight, central weight, visceral fat, insulin levels rise, and it's this cycle that continues. And then over time, it leads to prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, and then the sequelae we see with the other chronic diseases. So weight change is a downstream effect of insulin resistance. The other things like the cravings and the fatigue are all because our body isn't functioning properly. That glucose isn't doing what it needs to do. It's not getting where it needs to go. So other things that play a role, so this is the primary thing, but also inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, micronutrient deficiencies, which can be worsened by this focus on weight loss alone, chronic stress, poor sleep, toxin exposure. All of these things have an effect on insulin resistance or developing diabetes and prediabetes. So the things that actually drive diabetes risk are the visceral fat around the organs. Also the signaling. So the predictor of diabetes is visceral fat, not just weight alone, right? This is really important. So it's not something that you can necessarily weigh weigh somebody and say, oh, you have an increased risk for diabetes, even though that's what we how we present it normally. It's not quite that simple. So other things that insulin resistance affects, which is why it's important to manage this, it affects our brain health, so it increases our risk for Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. It affects our heart health. It can raise cholesterol, blood pressure, increases inflammation. It affects our energy levels when we're not able to process our food properly. We are chronically fatigued and sluggish. It can worsen other hormonal problems. And so when we fix insulin resistance, it helps many organs much beyond weight. So just to reiterate, so fat, there is visceral fat and there is, I don't know if you can see this well. So visceral fat is stored deep around the organs. It's metabolically active and inflammatory, and that is what interferes with blood sugar regulation. Subcutaneous fat, which is stored under the skin, is not metabolically active and it's not really linked to diabetes risk. So the where fat is stored matters more than how much you weigh, which is why there are people that are, not deemed overweight that have insulin resistance and have prediabetes and diabetes, and there are people that are deemed overweight that don't have the risk. So it's much more, complicated than just a number on the scale. So the reframe, it's not about fighting your body, it's about supporting it. We want to support our body's natural healing mechanisms, and we do that through nourishment, through movement, through rest, through connection, joy. And these are not luxuries, they're actually medicine. So when we lean into supporting our body, we move from exhaustion to resilience and from surviving to thriving. So I talk about the health myths because this is one of the things that comes back again and again. There's these three main things. There's many, but one is health is just about the numbers. I hear this again and again and again from my colleagues who I respect, but we do focus so much more on numbers. Another one is we just need more willpower and discipline. The last one is if it's slow, it's failing. So first, let's talk about the numbers. So everywhere, I mean, we have more and more tracking devices, and we are encouraged to track everything from our sleep, but weight, calories, macros. But the thing is, when we look at the numbers, we're not looking at the whole story, right? You can get the perfect number of perfect amount of protein and carbs and all of these and still miss key nutrients. You can lose weight and still have insulin resistance, and you can still follow all of these rigid rules and still feel not well. So health is more than numbers. We are complex human beings. We're not machines. Metabolic health improves when we support food, quality. I always say it's much more important to look at the quality and the foods that you're consuming as opposed to the number of macros or calories or, you know, those things, fat. Mindset is really important. Instead of all or nothing thinking, which often happens when we're looking at the numbers strictly, really embracing, diversity and embracing all of the different levels is important. Connection, joy, not restriction and control, and focusing on whole plant-forward foods. So that's really important. I think the focus on macros misses this important fact that when we focus on consuming more plant-based foods, we get more nutrient-dense foods, we improve our insulin sensitivity, and we can approach it in a more sustainable method, which creates conditions for healing. So the next one is it's all about willpower. So this leads to all or nothing thinking, being on or off, right? A lot of times we think, oh, if I can't do it all, then I just can't do it, can't do anything. I might as well not do anything because I'm just, I'm not winning. You feel like you're failing all the time. And when health feels like it's fragile, it's easy to assume that the problem is discipline related. And it's not, right? It's simply not that. And so stress, poor sleep environment, all of these things can disrupt appetite and blood sugar regulation. And when our nervous system is dysregulated, it really makes try harder backfire. When we're focused on all or nothing, or really that willpower and restrictiveness, it increases the stress on our body, which worsens metabolic dysfunction. So healing doesn't come from force. It really comes from support, safety. We need to feel that we're safe. Our body responds to stress, whether it's a notification on our phone or being chased by a bear. The body can't distinguish what it is, right? Our cortisol level is going to rise, and it's going to worsen these factors, increase inflammation, affect our gut health. It affects every part of our body. So really, it's important to feel supported and safe, and have the mindset for success as well. More people coming in. So consistency again is also very important. So the last one, this is my favorite one. If it's fast, it isn't work. If it isn't fast, it isn't working. So this really creates this impatience that, is common. I mean, it's hard in the society that we're in, where we have all this technology available to us and everything is moving faster and faster. We seem to think that we should heal faster, but it makes us also chase quick fixes, quick diets. And it also makes us stop and start when we don't see the results immediately. And we judge our progress by how quickly it happens, not by what actually is changing underneath. And this is really important, because we are, again, humans. We are animals. We're not machines. And so recognizing that nature takes time is really a really important part of the healing. And measuring progress in different things instead of looking at just the numbers is really important. So the truth is, really, healing takes time. Metabolic repair happens gradually. It happens at the cellular level before you see outward changes. Um, Blood sugar, insulin sensitivity, and fat distribution change before the scale does. And faster results don't last. So, sticking in, for looking for long-term sustainable change is really where the power is. Slow does not mean that it's failing. It just means that the body is adapting. The body, again, has an amazing capacity to heal when supported properly. And so giving their body a chance to heal, often, these changes have taken place over years, right? Decades. And so to expect a change, healing to happen, within a month or within, whatever it is unrealistic. Sometimes the change happens gradually over years, but it does happen. So lasting health is built through strong, steady, supported change, not urgency. So going back to the blue zones, I was like to talk about the blue zones. When we look at the blue zones and the things that support healing or support health, it's simple, flavorful foods, movement that's just built into daily life. That's part of this modern society that we're in. We've kind of engineered movement out of our life. Convenience takes over in many ways. So ways that we can build that back in is really important. Strong social bonds are important. When we connect socially, it actually stimulates happy hormones, lowers our stress, and it really is important. Having purpose, having a slower pace and more joy is also, I think, essential. So keys I see to reversing diabetes, understanding what's really happening, letting go of these outdated myths, addressing the underlying causes, not just looking at, again, a superficial cause like superficial measures. Eating for healing, moving your body naturally and often, sleeping well, managing stress, and reconnecting with joy, purpose, and community. So these are, when we stop chasing weight, we actually are able to improve health. So when lifestyle targets metabolism, the evidence shows that insulin sensitivity improves, A1C decreases, visceral fat is reduced, needs often decline. And this is shown again and again when we focus on lifestyle change as opposed to focusing on weight loss. The changes are more sustainable, and they actually are more transformative as in terms of reversing disease, but also for long-term health. And these changes may happen before significant weight loss, even if weight loss is modest. And again, it's more sustainable for the long term. So these are all lifestyle medicine pillars. There's 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. I always add joy as the seventh pillar because I really feel like we often in modern life we forget that joy is there, and when we can harness that as a healing um, tool is really also important. So nutrition, abundant plant-based foods. So I always focus on the abundance, what we need to include as opposed to what we restrict. So that is usually the first step is including more plant predominant whole foods. Moving, moving throughout the day is really important. Regular movement, daily movement is important. Stress management and mindfulness. Restorative sleep is really important. We're supposed to get 7 to 9 hours a night. I know most adults do not get that, and it's really important for healing. All of our healing processes happen while we sleep, and poor sleep is another form of stress on the body. So again, worsening insulin function and improving worsening glucose control. Connection, as I mentioned before, connection is really important for our just being human. Environmental exposures are important. So reducing exposure to the toxins that we use and we ingest is important. So alcohol and smoking, but also other environmental toxins. We're seeing more and more that those have an effect on insulin resistance as well. And joy, which is the secret for life, I think, but also for sustainable habits. So yeah, finding joy in these lifestyle pillars is really important and interweaving joy throughout. So a few steps you can start doing right away. Feel free to ask questions. I don't know if I said that, you know, you can put your questions in the chat if you have questions in the chat. But so simple actions you can start right away. So focusing on the food quality. So instead of focusing on macros, as I've mentioned, focusing on increasing fiber-rich foods, looking at the rainbow, eating the rainbow. This helps when you focus on high fiber foods. It actually slows glucose spikes. It also supports gut health, which is really important, we know, for metabolic health overall and our overall lowering inflammation, improving your immune system. Fiber also helps you keeps you full longer. While I always focus on what you should include first, limiting ultra-processed foods is important. Ultra-processed foods confuse our hunger signals because they lack fiber, so that doesn't help us recognize fullness. They also often are processed with salt and sugar together, which again confuse our hunger signals. And they can also disrupt hormones. One of the most simple movement things that you can add is walking after meals. Even just 10 minutes of gentle walking can lower post-meal blood sugar spikes. It also boosts insulin sensitivity. It also helps your digestion and clears your mind. So that 10-minute walk can be really powerful. As I mentioned, sleep. 7 to 9 hours every night. We should be sleeping the same amount of time every night, the same hours every night, having like a wind down routine and avoiding the blue light, which I know some people say, oh, it doesn't affect me, but it does affect your sleep cycles. So it can really affect the quality of your sleep. And so limiting the blue light at least an hour before bedtime. Melatonin affects much more than just sleep. So when we are using blue lights before bedtime, it interferes with our melatonin secretion, which can disrupt insulin regulation as well. Other things beyond food, connecting with someone you love. Social connection reduces stress, it lowers cortisol, and again helps protect metabolic health. Hugs count. Joy, as I mentioned, having joy. I call them joy snacks, but focusing on little moments of joy throughout the day are really important. It helps reset your nervous system. It helps make you be more mindful, so you can make better decisions when it comes to food and movement and all these other lifestyle pillars we talked about. Simple examples are a dance break. My favorite little joy thing is my cup of coffee in the morning, you know, enjoying the just a cup of coffee before I do anything else, maybe sitting in nature. So just 10 minutes of focused joy helps calm your nervous system and supports healing. I say joy isn't extra, it really is essential. So, um, so I think you're here because you're looking for a different approach that may work in your real life, not another plan to manage. Is there, oh, I'll answer at the end. Yeah. So this work is grounded in experience and evidence. So I've supported people in improving their blood sugar, reducing reliance on medications, and reconnecting their health in a sustainable way. So we're going to talk a little bit about my program at the end here. Oops, what happened? Uh, so you've seen what's possible when you support your body instead of fighting it. But knowledge alone isn't enough. So knowing is one thing, but implementation is really the key. And so that is why I will talk about a little bit about my program, to help people really take action and really put this into apply it to their real life and make real lasting change. So I have the Joyful Metabolic Reset program. It's a 12-week physician-led program that focuses on reversing insulin resistance and reclaiming your energy with joy. And it's not a diet or a challenge for that matter. It's a proven system that helps you balance blood sugar, nourish your body, support metabolism, and create lifelong habits with guidance, accountability, and support every step of the way. So I have their educational modules, which we go through together week by week. It's split into 5 modules, I should say: metabolism and insulin resistance, mindset and motivation, because mindset is probably one of the most important things overall for your health. Food is medicine, because food should be, it can be nourishing, it can be medicine, but it also should be joyful. So we talk about that in that module. And lifestyle, the other lifestyle factors that we talked about just before. And the last one is implementation into or reintroduction to real life. So environment, setting your environment up for success. So the program includes one-on-one coaching in addition to weekly group coaching, question and answer, support, troubleshooting, and motivation. There's some tracking and tools available as well, and some meal templates and resources along the way to help keep you on track. So it's 12 weeks of guidance, it's 3 private coaching calls, but additional coaching along the way, weekly group question and answers, progress tracking tools, and a community. It includes a year of community support afterwards, because making a change, when you're changing habits that you've had for a lifetime, it often, the reinforcement over the course of a year is really important. So that is the entire program. And so this value, if you were to do this program privately, the support would easily cost more than $5,000 with the level of one-on-one support. But it's designed actually to be accessible, because everyone, I want to have the chance to heal. So the investment actually, it's $19.97 normally, but for the month of December and through today, it's 50% off. So it's $9.97. And the next cohort starts January 12th, in 2 weeks. So the people that have done the program before have had really great results, everything from being able to avoid medication completely to come off medication, to one lady had her husband do it along with, well, he wasn't doing the program, but he was eating how she was eating, and he actually lost 10 pounds and was able to come off medication himself. So it really is effective. And in the beginning part, I mentioned how when we as women support our own health, we're actually able to create a ripple effect for the people around us, and that really demonstrates that there. I had several women that have had pre-diabetes and have been able to avoid medication altogether, and just feeling better. You can see throughout, seeing changes pretty quickly when you focus on nourishing your body. So common questions people may have is, maybe you've tried many things before and it hasn't worked. And I think, as we talked about, how lifestyle change takes time. So that's often one of the things, but also sometimes it's the all or nothing thinking. So a lot of times you haven't failed. It's really not having the right tools and the right support. Sometimes people feel overwhelmed because that is a lot of information, many different changes on many different avenues, but having guidance throughout the 12 weeks and breaking it down into small, doable steps is really the key. And focusing on progress as opposed to perfection is another key in maintaining any lifestyle change, but sustainable change, and a good way to approach health overall. Um, Sometimes people think that they may be too busy But again, the goal of this program is really to create a lifestyle change. So it's making those small, consistent steps and building on them. And so it should fit into your life. I always think that the biggest thing is that lifestyle is lifestyle. It shouldn't be something separate. I think often we try to make a change and it's like an on-off switch. And then, so that's why it's on and off, as opposed to something that's a gradual, stepwise change is more sustainable and doable in real life. Um, the last one is I don't want something I can start that I can't stick with. And so I just, as part of this program, is like, we do it together. It's with you every step of the way. It's 12 weeks of meetings and support, but also an ongoing year of community support afterwards. So that is my commitment to you, is that it's not a plan that you just get handed. It's step-by-step guidance. It's coaching. It's nervous system support. It's all the things that make it real and doable for your life. It's also accountability and making adjustments along the way so that it works for you. And your healing is our shared work. It's not a diet. It's really a way of living. So enrollment is open now. So I will answer questions. I'm going to stop. So as far as measuring, I think you asked about diagnosing insulin resistance. So I think that there's a HOMO IR test that can measure insulin resistance, and you can have that done with your physician. There are the signs of insulin resistance. So if you do have, elevated insulin levels, they can check a fasting insulin level with glucose. That's kind of how they do the home IR. Some signs of insulin resistance I mentioned earlier on were if you're having fatigue after meals, if you find that maybe you're having weight gain around the abdomen, those might be simple signs. If you have low energy, cravings and fatigue, those are all signs of insulin resistance, but the measure is actual doing the insulin level. I don't know if anybody else has any questions.
Hi, Dr. Davis. Thank you so much for this talk. It was great. But just wondering, do you logistically accept payment plans, or for just folks who wouldn't be able to come up with the $9.97 by the
Yes,
12th?
yes, I do have payment plans. I have a 3 payment plan, and then actually right now I do have a monthly payment plan if you want to do it. Since I do it for offer the community for a year afterwards, you can break it into a month as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Great. Well, thank you all for joining. I don't know if you have anybody else any other questions. Well, I will be sending out the
Thank
replay.
you.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thank you for joining.
Mhm.
I appreciate you all. Have a great day. So I will send out the replay, and I'll send out the details about the program if you want to join. And spread the word if you know anybody else that is looking for a different approach.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, you're welcome. Have a great weekend.